Have you ever loved someone so deeply that it began to hurt? Not the kind of hurt that comes from heartbreak or betrayal, something more subtle than that, a kind of ache that builds quietly. You start by giving your heart fully and freely, but somewhere along the way, you find yourself shrinking. You start holding back your truth out of fear they might walk away. You wait longer for their messages, checking your phone a bit too often. You begin to question your worth based on their attention, their moods, their silence. And you ask yourself, how did something that felt so right turn into something that leaves me feeling small, anxious, or even invisible? We rarely talk about this kind of suffering because from the outside, it looks like love. You laugh together, you say, I love you, you hold hands, you celebrate anniversaries. But inside, there's a part of you that's no longer at peace. You've started to lose touch with yourself in the name of holding on to someone else. This happens more often than we realize. And it's not because we love too much. It's because we haven't yet learned how to love mindfully. You see, love without mindfulness can turn into attachment. It can become a need to control, to possess, to demand. It becomes a bargain. I'll give you my love if you give me your reassurance. And the moment that trade feels uneven, fear shows up. Jealousy sneaks in, insecurity grows, and we suffer, not because we're weak or unworthy, but because we haven't been shown another way. But there is another way, a more peaceful, compassionate, and spacious way to love. The Buddha spoke about it. So did many great teachers who walked gently through this world. And it's something we can all learn, not through theory, but through presence, through awareness, through the practice of mindfulness in our daily life and in our relationships. To love mindfully means we learn to stay awake inside our love, not lost in fantasy, not driven by fear. It means we see clearly the other person as they are, ourselves as we are, and the relationship for what it truly is, not what we hope or fear it to be. It means we learn to offer love without clinging, to care without controlling, to be fully present with someone while also being deeply rooted in ourselves. This kind of love doesn't demand that you abandon your truth. It doesn't require you to earn your place. It doesn't feed on drama or power struggles. Instead, it breathes, it listens, it nurtures freedom and connection at the same time. And so I want to invite you gently to explore what it really means to love in such a way that the other person feels free. Not just free to come and go, but free to be, free to grow, free to feel safe in your presence, in you and theirs. This isn't just about romantic love. It's about the way we love anyone, partners, friends, family, even ourselves. Because if we can bring mindfulness into the way we love, we begin to soften the roots of suffering, not just in our own heart, but in the hearts of those we hold dear. So let's walk into this together, slowly, tenderly, with honesty and courage. Let's talk about how we can love without losing ourselves, how we can hold space for both intimacy and freedom, and how, perhaps more than anything, we can stop causing suffering in the name of love. Section 1. A question that awakens the heart. Have you ever noticed how something that begins so beautifully can gradually lead us into confusion, anxiety, or even suffering? Love has a quiet way of doing that, especially when we love without awareness. In the beginning, everything feels magical. There's a sense of being chosen, of being seen, of being connected in a way that feels rare and precious. The energy of love lifts us up. It's effortless, vibrant, full of hope. But what many people don't realize is that this early phase of love is often fueled by projections, images we carry about what love should be, who this person might be, and what they could mean for our happiness. And slowly, without knowing it, we fall asleep inside the relationship. We stop being present. We begin chasing a fantasy version of the other person, or clinging to a version of the relationship that only exists in memory. We begin to fear change. We start trying to control. We suffer when the other person doesn't behave in ways that match our expectations. This kind of love, though sincere, is often built on the unstable ground of craving and attachment. We want them to love us in the exact way we imagine. We want them to always understand, to always respond, to never leave us feeling uncertain or unseen. And when that doesn't happen, we feel wounded. Not because they meant to hurt us, but because we've tied our sense of peace to their behavior. So the deeper question becomes, what kind of love are we practicing? Is it love rooted in presence and freedom, or is it love tied to fear and expectation? Mindfulness asks us to pause and reflect. It doesn't scold or judge. It simply brings light to the patterns that keep us cycling through the same pain. When we begin to ask, am I loving with awareness or am I reacting from habit? We start to wake up, not just to the truth of the relationship, but to ourselves. To love without causing harm is not to love less. It is to love more deeply, more honestly. It is to love with eyes open, with heart open, and with the humility to recognize that no one can save us from ourselves, not even the one we love most. Section 2. Love is a spiritual path, not just emotion. The world teaches us that love is something to fall into, like a story, like a dream. And for a while, that dream carries us. It's intoxicating. It gives us something to look forward to, someone to think about, someone to long for. But when we approach love only as an emotion, something that sweeps us up and carries us away, we miss something essential. We miss the truth that love, real love, is not just a feeling. It's a practice, it's a path. It's a deep and conscious way of being with ourselves and with another. In Buddhist teachings, love is not separate from the path of awakening. In fact, how we love is one of the clearest mirrors of our inner state. Are we reacting from fear or resting in trust? Are we trying to fix someone or are we learning to understand them? Are we holding space for their growth or quietly resenting their difference? The Buddha spoke about attachment as one of the main causes of suffering, not because connection is wrong, but because clinging distorts the natural flow of love. When we attach, we try to possess what cannot be possessed. We try to freeze what is always changing. And we set ourselves up for suffering when the reality of impermanence, of all things, begins to unfold. But imagine love not as clinging, but as presence, as compassion, as understanding. A spacious love where both people are free to breathe and be. A mindful love where communication is honest and emotions are honored. A steady love where kindness is more important than ego and where silence can feel just as intimate as words. That kind of love doesn't just happen, it's cultivated. And the foundation of it lies in understanding. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, understanding is love's other name. You cannot truly love someone unless you understand them, their fears, their wounds, their dreams, their rhythms. But this understanding must begin with ourselves. We cannot love another in a healthy way if we have not yet learned to befriend our own loneliness, our own longing, our own shadow. Love then becomes a spiritual training ground. Every conflict becomes an invitation to return to compassion. Every moment of insecurity becomes a chance to sit with our pain instead of projecting it onto the other. Every disappointment becomes a doorway back into presence. When we start to see love through this lens, we stop asking the relationship to fulfill all our unmet needs. We stop making our partner responsible for our happiness. We begin to show up not as someone seeking to be completed, but as someone already whole, ready to walk alongside another with gentleness and clarity. And isn't that what love should be? Not a place to lose ourselves, but a place where we are both deeply seen and deeply free. A place not of performance, but of presence. A place not of grasping, but of giving. To love as a path is not always easy. It requires us to be vulnerable, to be. Section 3. What is mindful love? When we talk about mindful love, we're not talking about a kind of love that's cold or calculated. It's not love that retreats from emotion or avoids passion. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Mindful love is deeply alive, it's fully present, but it's no longer driven by fear, ego, or the hunger to possess. It's rooted in clarity, in compassion, in deep understanding. To love mindfully means to be aware of what we are bringing into the relationship, our thoughts, our habits, our wounds, our expectations, and to hold them with care so that we don't project them onto the person we love. It means that instead of reacting from our past pain, we take a breath and return to the present moment. Instead of blaming the other person for our discomfort, we ask, what is arising in me right now? Why does this hurt? Is this about them or something in me that's calling for attention, for healing? Mindfulness gives us a space between feeling and action. In that space, we can choose how to respond. And in love, that space is everything. Without mindfulness, love becomes reactive. One person pulls away, the other chases. One person shuts down, the other explodes. We fall into cycles, silent treatments, emotional games, unmet expectations, and before long, we're no longer connecting with each other, but with the stories we've built in our heads. With mindfulness, we slow down, we soften, we begin to listen, not just with our ears, but with our full presence. We listen not to reply, not to defend ourselves, but to understand. And maybe for the first time, we begin to see the person in front of us is also carrying their own fears, their own longing, their own unspoken wounds, just like us. When we see this, love becomes gentler. It becomes more forgiving. We realize that love isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about meeting each other fully, flaws and all, and choosing day by day, breath by breath, to be kind. Mindful love says, I see your suffering, and I don't want to add to it. It says, I want to love you in a way that helps you feel safe, seen, and free. And it also says, I must love myself in the same way too. Because loving mindfully is not about self-sacrifice. It's about balance. It's about honoring both people. It's not about staying in a relationship at all costs. Sometimes the most mindful love is the one that knows when to let go, when to step back, when to say this connection is no longer healthy, and I release it with compassion. There is strength in that. There is dignity, and above all, there is peace. Section 4, signs of a love that does not hurt. So how do we recognize the kind of love that doesn't make us suffer? Not just in others, but in ourselves. First, it's a love where we don't feel the need to disappear to be accepted. We don't have to shrink ourselves to keep someone close. We don't have to constantly second-guess our worth, walk on eggshells, or prove that we deserve to be loved. A mindful love lets us breathe. It allows us to speak honestly, to show up as we are, sometimes soft, sometimes messy, sometimes vulnerable, and still feel safe. Not because the other person is perfect, but because the space between us is rooted in trust, presence, and mutual respect. Second, it's a love that holds boundaries, not walls. We're not afraid to say no, to take space when needed, to protect our energy when we're overwhelmed. And at the same time, we're not shutting out the other. We're simply making space for the relationship to grow in a way that's respectful and sustainable. A mindful love is also one where we can feel joy for the other person's joy. We don't feel threatened by their success or happiness. We don't need to compete for attention. Instead, we celebrate them. We cheer them on, and we feel happy simply because they are happy. And maybe most importantly, mindful love gives both people the freedom to change, because change is inevitable. We all grow, we all evolve. And love that doesn't allow for change becomes rigid, controlling, stagnant. But love that is grounded in mindfulness allows space for transformation. It says, I love who you are now, and I'm open to who you may become. That doesn't mean everything will last forever. It doesn't mean all love stories will work out the way we want. But it does mean that while they're here, they can be deeply meaningful, deeply nourishing, and free from unnecessary suffering. And that perhaps is what we are all searching for. Not just love, but love with peace. Section 5, how to practice mindful love. Practicing mindful love isn't something that happens all at once. It's a lifetime journey, one that unfolds gently as we learn to return to ourselves again and again. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. And when we are present, we can begin to truly love. So how do we do it? First, we begin with ourselves. Before we can love someone else with clarity, we need to understand our own heart. That means learning to be with our feelings, even the difficult ones we saw, without running away, without pushing them down, without blaming them on someone else. When sadness arises, we can breathe with it. When jealousy arises, we can look at it gently and ask, what are you really trying to say? This inner work is the foundation. Because if we are not aware of our own pain, we will carry it into every relationship we have. We will look for healing in another person instead of offering healing from within. Second, we practice deep listening. This is not just about hearing the words someone says. It's about listening with your whole presence. When your partner or friend or family member speaks, can you be there, not preparing your next response, not fixing, not judging, just being with them? This kind of listening is rare. and it is a gift. It says, you are safe to be seen here. You are safe to be yourself. Third, we practice non-reactivity. This doesn't mean we suppress our emotions. It means we learn to pause. Before sending that angry message, before raising our voice, before slamming the door, we take a breath, just one. And in that breath, we ask, is what I'm about to say rooted in love or in fear? That pause is where mindfulness lives. That pause is what gives us the power to love without causing harm. Fourth, we bring the four immeasurable qualities into our relationships. Loving kindness, metta, the genuine wish for the other to be happy. Compassion, karuna, the intention to ease the suffering of the other. Joy, mudita, the ability to feel happiness when the other is happy. Equanimity, upekkha, the wisdom to allow things to be as they are without clinging or aversion. When these qualities are alive in our heart, our love becomes a spiritual path. It becomes a mirror in which we see ourselves more clearly. It becomes a practice that softens the ego and nurtures the soul. Lastly, we remember to let go, not of love itself, but of our grip on how it must look. We let go of the fantasy. We let go of the urge to control. We let go of the need to be right or to always be met in the exact way we expect. That doesn't mean we abandon our needs, but we hold them gently, not with fists clenched, but with palms open. Love becomes less about demand and more about invitation. And that's when love can breathe again. Section 6. Conclusion. A love that sets us free. In the end, all of us are looking for the same thing. We want to be seen. We want to be safe. We want to feel that our presence matters to someone else, not just for what we can give or how we look or what role we play, but simply because we are here. Mindful love gives us this, not through grand gestures or perfect words, but through quiet, steady presence. When we love in mindfulness, we stop making our partner responsible for our happiness. We stop blaming others for our wounds, and we stop creating more pain in the name of love. We begin to understand that real love, the kind that heals rather than harms, is not about holding tighter. It's about holding more gently. It's about learning that we can care deeply for someone and still allow them to be free. It's about learning that we can remain soft even when the world hardens around us. And it's about learning that the most beautiful love stories aren't the ones that avoid suffering altogether, but the ones where both people are committed to not adding to the suffering, where both are walking together not as two halves seeking completion, but as two whole beings choosing to meet again and again in presence. So if you've ever loved and felt lost, if you've ever loved and felt unseen, if you've ever loved and found yourself forgetting who you are, come back, come home to yourself, and from that place begin again. Love deeply, but love mindfully, love fully, but love freely, and above all, love in a way that brings peace to your heart and to theirs. That is the love the Buddha spoke of. That is the love the world is waiting for. And that is the love you already have the capacity to give, starting now, starting here with your next breath.